Jamming with History, Chapter 13 Motivation. It took a few minutes before Virgil untangled himself enough to look up at Roman, his eyes bloodshot and eyeliner running. Sorry, I'm good now, he whispered hoarsely as he wiped at his cheeks with the palm, causing smears across his cheekbones. It's okay. Do you want to talk about it? Roman suggested. Nah, I'm good. Virgil shrugged as he started getting up. Woman's firm hand stopped him, though. Okay, that is the answer you give people you don't want to bother. Now the one you give people who know better, he insisted gently. Virgil was about to insist that he was fine again, but Roman pinned him down with a glare. After looking at him speechless for a moment, Virgil let out a chuckle. You've known me for a month. How can you spot my tells? He asked incredulously. I've known Virgil for a month, but don't forget, I know Hawkins mood by how he phrases a text message, or by the strokes of his brush. Your facial expressions and tone of voice are much easier to read, Roman reminded him. Virgil sighed and got up again. Fair enough. He retrieved the chain of Polaroids and sat down next to Roman. Being the youngest of 5, and a surprise, or a blessing, as everyone keeps calling me, well, baby of the family is putting it lightly. Everyone was very protective growing up, even before. I could give examples, but I'm sure you can imagine how it was. Virgil smiled as he looked up at Roman, who nodded. He could imagine the people he'd met would go great lengths to protect their family. Virgil looked back to the pictures. I got diagnosed when I was 10 3/4, but I had been 6 for a few months before that. This guy, he pointed at the picture of his 10-year-old self, doesn't know what is in store for him over the next 3 years. Roman studied the boy holding a Stitch doll standing among his family, decked out in party hats. They all looked so happy. I lost a lot of weight, no matter what my parents gave me to eat. It got to the point where teachers were checking if I ate at all. So finally, the doctor did the right tests, and I remember being confused during the consultation. The doctor gave my parents a book to read. My brothers all had homes of their own by that point. I mean, Sean was in college, but the point is, I was pretty much only child at that point. That weekend, however, all my brothers were home, and even Uncle Logan had made it over. They read me the book, and it started to dawn on me. This was really bad. I wasn't being paranoid when I worried over my symptoms. I had cancer. I didn't know much about it, but I knew enough. I knew cancer was deadly. I was terrified and I was full of regret. I was very shy as a kid. Woman was surprised at that. Shy was not a word he'd associate with Virgil. Ever. Or scared would be more accurate, Virgil corrected. Especially in social situations. I had skipped out on so many things because I was worried about things that seemed silly when faced with the possibility of dying. He shook his head and took a moment to collect his thoughts. Roman waited patiently. There were a lot of treatments. None seemed to stick as well as we wanted them to, and they all had side effects. Some permanent, some past. He touched the spot on his neck that was darker than the rest, and then he pointed at himself in his earlier pictures. Roman noticed that his hair looked lighter in those pictures than it was now. The dark undercut and outgrow was plain as day. It's also not as soft as it used to be, Virgil informed him pensively. You remember when I told you that family might hurt you even when they mean well? He asked quietly. Woman nodded. Well, they tried to act like things were fine, like I told you. But I wasn't fine. I was terrified, and I felt like I couldn't tell anyone because no one else seemed to think it was such a big deal, and I often made big deals out of little things, so I thought they didn't care as much as I did. But then I overheard them talking about how they were really feeling, and I got mad. because I felt like they'd been making me feel ridiculous for being scared of dying. Well, they were no better off, and they weren't the ones who were sick, you know? Virgil's voice cracked as tears started to make their way back to the surface. He looked at Roman, his eyes begging him to understand. It wasn't fair that they got to be scared and cry, and I was told not to be afraid and smile because everything would be okay. And they kept calling me their blessing, but I didn't feel like a blessing. I felt like a burden at best. It didn't help that one of our neighbors, she was a very she was the bad kind of religious, and Thomas was openly out, and Christian married a man. She said, his voice caught, and he looked down, tears gathering again. She made it clear that she thought that my condition was God's way of punishing my parents for letting their son sin. Made it a point to tell me in person that they had damned me. I kinda took that more to heart than I should have. Roman could see that whatever that wretched woman had said, it still haunted him. Roman felt furious at the thought of a grown woman terrifying a sick 11-year-old boy like that. He kept himself under control, though. Virgil didn't need him to be his knight right now. He needed him to listen and be supportive. Anyway, I threw a tantrum and threw up my most recent birthday picture. He tapped the mended Polaroid. After that, everyone tried to be more open about how they were feeling and allowed me to worry about the treatments and the consultations if I needed to. Not much longer after the treatment finally did what it was supposed to do, and by my 13th birthday, I was in remission. Virgil let out a deep sigh and leaned back. Uncle Logan and the others made many visits. We lived a few hours away from here back then, he recalled, smiling a little as better memories offered levity. I got better, but everyone knew. The local paper didn't have anything better to write about. Logan was the most interesting person my old hometown ever produced, so anything exciting happening with his family was newsworthy, I guess. And there was a journalist who agreed with a nasty neighbor. And they weren't the only ones. That was shut down after Uncle Jay and Uncle Patton heard about it, though. They can get really scary when they want to be. He chuckled, fondness softening his features for a moment longer, until his gaze darkened again. Still, no one acted the same towards me. Some seemed to think I had to be treated like I was made of crystal. Others acted as though I was contagious. But no one let me forget. So we moved, and everyone came here, where Lo and the others live. And I promised myself never to let fear stop me. So I asked for a skateboard, and I walked up to a group of kids my age and asked to be taught. And I started swimming as a way to relax, but once I built up strength after everything, I was pretty good, and I liked it, so I tried out, and Virgil looked down and bit his lip, frowning in concentration for a long moment before looking up at Roman, determined. Well, what you see, the confidence, the I don't fear that thing, I am terrified all the time. But I know what it's like to think you'll never get another chance. And that terrifies me even more. If that makes sense. Virgil shrugged. It does. Thank you for sharing. Do you feel better? Woman wondered softly. Virgil sighs. Kinda. The shoot of this morning stuck with me harder than I thought it would. Usually I'm not this much of a mess. Woman gently placed an arm around Virgil's shoulders, moving slowly so Virgil had a chance to turn him down. He didn't, so Woman pulled him into a sideways hug. Hey, it's fine. I'm sure that if it were me having a breakdown, you'd listen to me too, he pointed out. Virgil looked up and nodded, smiling a little awkwardly, taking in Woman slowly, perhaps looking for what had changed now that his truth lay bare between them. I won't lie, Virgil. It is a lot to take in, and it does change things. I never knew how much you bear on your shoulders. I cannot help but admire you for your courage and strength. He told him sincerely. Virgil snorted and pushed Roman off. Did you not just hear me? I am terrified all the time. You think I'm this cool guy who has everything under control, and is who he is with no apologies. But just talking to you when we got paired up together, I nearly had a panic attack. I was so worried I'd come off as a jerk. Every time I give you a ride, I worry I'm about to get the both of us killed. I wasn't just sweating from the heat this morning. If anything, that did me a favor, or your parents would have seen through me in an instant, Virgil pointed out. Exactly, Roman nodded. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is being afraid, but doing what needs to be done anyway, he stated. I know that line is from the Sophan Warrior summer play, Virgil grumbled, though he was starting to relax. Doesn't make it any less true, Roman pointed out. Fine, you might have a point. Sort of. Roman was not satisfied with that reaction, though. Virgil, what you experienced could have very easily solidified your fear of bad things happening to you, both when it comes to physical danger and people. But instead of shutting everything and everyone out so you wouldn't get hurt, you put yourself out there and became someone many people admire, present company included. Virgil chuckled and bumped his shoulder into Roman. Okay, you made your point. Can we end this conversation here? Let's have a snack and get back to work, okay? He asked. Roman nodded and they got up, sitting themselves back on the bed. They tried out a few openings to establish the dynamic of their presentation, since they were both in dire need of something light after that conversation. At some point, Roman's eye was caught by a colorful picture of Virgil with his brothers. They were waving bright flags. Thomas and one of the twins, Christian, Roman would guess, were waving the rainbow. The ones Roman identified as Patrick and Sean were waving ally flags, and Virgil was holding two. Surprise, I'm by, Virgil chuckled, making Roman jump up in surprise. He'd been a little more captivated by the picture than he'd intended. He had been fairly sure that Virgil wasn't straight, but it was nice to have confirmation. The other flag, though, and romantic, Virgil added, a little nervous as he sat down and took a sip from his drink. Roman sat down next to him, feeling like Virgil was getting ready to say more about it. People don't always get what it is. What it means to me is, I'll know that I want to kiss someone long before I know if I want to hold their hand. I used to think I was slow on the uptake, but then I learned about the Arrow A spectrum and it kinda clicked. Last year was my first pride with that flag. I don't advertise it. It's no one's business, really. You know, you can keep a secret, right? Virgil asked, smiling awkwardly. Cross my heart, Roman pledged. Okay, for a while, I was kinda crushing on my teammate Ryan. One, he's ridiculously handsome, Virgil smirked, though he seemed to catch himself and wished to elaborate. I never stared. Not when he wasn't inviting it, at least. And he does invite it. He gives a gun show at least once every training. And he knows I'm bi, so I consider those moments ogling with consent. I think it gives him a thrill of some sort. We even made out one time. He wanted to try it out, and at that point I had no feelings for him yet, so I didn't see the harm in it, you know? It was okay. I'm a good kisser, according to him. Is just really not into the guy scene. Virgil took in a breath after his ramble, and Roman couldn't help but think that this side of Virgil was extremely adorable. He wouldn't hate to be with a guy who can be both. Fast forward to a few months later, we're hanging out a lot over the summer, and I realize I have a romantic crush. Virgil continues as he rubs his neck nervously. I told him right away, and he was cool about it. I needed to take some time away from him to work through these feelings since I knew it wasn't gonna happen, and I didn't want him to think I was mad at him or something. So it was awkward, but not as awkward as when I tried asking Jane out just because the others thought I had a crush, and I had no clue what a romantic crush really felt like at the time. She gave it a hard pass because I'm like the baby brother of the group to her. He looked back at Roman with a sheepish smirk. In case you still have any illusion about me being cool and self assured, I'm a disaster at the whole romance thing, he joked. Roman pondered over that for a minute. Okay, out of sheer curiosity, do you want to kiss me? He asked, trying to go for playful, partly to hide his nervous excitement and partly to lighten the mood. Virgil chuckled. Well, I think we've established that I think you are pretty, and that you look very good in swim trunks. And in a tie, he tells him coyly. Woman tried not to blush, so he wasn't completely hopeless. Virgil was interested in him on some level, but he didn't dare ask Virgil if he wanted to hold his hand. Well, since we are being upfront about our past experience, I fall fairly easily. Not to say that I've had many crushes. In fact, I've only had one person I was romantic interested in. It didn't take me long to fall for him, though. About three conversations looking back to it. Oh, does he know? Virgil asked. I don't know. I didn't tell him. You are much braver than I am, clearly, Roman shrugged. If that question was anything to go off, though, he was fairly certain that he didn't know. Thanks, I guess. Though you should tell him, Virgil insisted. Roman sighed. I know. I just. If he were to return my feelings, I want to be out with my parents and have them not judge me for my choice in partner. Not 'cause he's a guy, he clarified in a hurry. I'm sure they already know, though I haven't confirmed it to them yet. But protective parents. I want them to not make him feel like he is an intruder in my life, and I don't want to have to sneak around. If I'm lucky and he feels the same, I want to be able to shout it off the rooftops, and I want him not to doubt for a second that I want him with me. The woman felt heat rush to his face as his own ramblings caught up to him. Sorry, that was. I'll shut up now, he worried. Virgil chuckled. Nah, man, it's okay. That sounded very sweet. He's a lucky guy. But, out of curiosity, since you asked me, do you want to kiss me? The woman couldn't look at Virgil right now. Um, well, I think it's obvious that you look very good in everything, he admitted. Hmm, Virgil mused thoughtfully. What are you thinking about? The woman asked nervously. Virgil chuckled. Relax, Princey. I'm not thinking anything indecent. I just wondered what you'll be doing for your birthday next week. The woman frowned. That seemed a bit out of nowhere. I'm celebrating the day before with my family, he told him. Virgil nodded. Less celebration with privacy, huh? He mused. Woman shrugs. That was the reason, if you were honest. So you are free the day off. Woman perked up. Yes? Do you like your makeover? Virgil wondered, as he looked him up and down with a smirk. Woman blushed and nodded. Yeah, your uncles have good taste, he admitted. Good. Keep this outfit for now. We'll go shopping for your birthday. Among other fun things. Do you trust me? Virgil asked with lights in his eyes that promised the kind of harmless chaos Woman had come to love about their interactions. Woman didn't have to think about his answer. Yes,